Okay, moving on from the tRoE type to the unaltered Upper Paleolithic Magnon types. So first we get to the Brunn, and first we'll show a couple of Scandinavian Brunn examples. So this is a Brunn from southern Sweden, and you can see the predominance, the recapitulation of the Cro-Magnon type here. You can see it well. Very wide-headed, also long-headed, and less sharp features than the Norded or the Norded admixed specimens. Swedish Brunn from Gothenburg, and you can see a sharp occiput here, but you can see that the Upper Paleolithic Cro-Magnon type predominates strongly. Nordic features are little to none. Now here are the Irish examples that people tend to typically associate with the Brunn online. The Brunn is present in Western Europe as a whole in much smaller numbers, and again in Scandinavia, as you've seen. So here you have a very good example of the Brunn type. This is a more or less unaltered Brunn. This guy is from Ireland, from County Cork. And now we have two examples of the Brunn transitional to the Borreby type. So here's a very large headed example of the type from County Clare. And then here we have a more typical, slightly smaller headed example of the type, still large headed. He's mostly unreduced Cro-Magnon, and this is said to be a common type among the Irish Americans. So that's a type that was proliferated greatly. Now we move on to the examples of the Borreby type. So here we've got someone, okay, he's a little bit less typical. He's a little bit longer skulled than typical Borreby, but he has clear Borreby facial traits. This is a Norwegian fellow. Now here we have the stereotypical Borreby type. Brilliant example of the Borreby type. He's the Jutish Dane. I think this is the fellow who is the father of the corded specimen I showed earlier. Another typical Borreby from Gothenburg in Sweden. Here's a West German Borreby from Stuttgart, and this is said to be a large element in northwestern Germany. There's a White Russian Borreby, a little bit less typical. Skull looks a little bit alpinized, but yeah, it fits the type. Here's a more brachycephalic example of a Finnish Borreby, but he says his overall metrics show him to be part of the type, so there's some bolted influence in this fellow, and again we'll come to the bolted shortly. Icelandic Barbie, again only a frontal angle here, but this fellow is also a good example of the type. This is a special Borreby subtype on the island of Fehmarn between Germany and Denmark. So it's one of the few German islands there between Germany and Denmark. This is a Borreby of extreme width. He says this is probably one of the widest skulls ever properly measured. Here we have a darker haired example of a Lombard Borreby. Again, the Lombards in northern Italy were another Germanic tribe, and this guy is clearly a recapitulation of the Borreby type among them. And here we have an alpinized Borreby from Longford in Ireland. So this guy shows either an alpinization of an UP stock, or probably an introduction of an alpine Neolithic stock that has influenced his Borreby features, reduced them, made them softer. Now a few other examples of outliers of the CM stock. So here we have Nordo-CM from Ireland, who shows some interesting facial features, which are apparently more common in the Atlanto-Mediterranean stock, and he says he could easily be mistaken for Atlanto-Mediterranean, tall Atlanto-Mediterranean, but he falls within the CM constraints for craniometrics. Then we move on to some North African types. So here we have another very Nordic-looking, he's Berber, Riffian Berber. He's a fqih, so a school teacher, Islamic school teacher, and he shows clear Nordic and Borreby admixture. And here we have another blonde Berberid, He's transitional to the Nordic type, but as you can see from his forehead and his face, his forehead especially, he's strongly CM. He was the Sheikh of Taguist. He's another Riffian Berber. This is the Qaid of Taguist, so he's a governor, whereas the former was also a governor, a sort of noble. And apparently this is a very regularly occurring type among the officials of the Taguist tribe of the Riffian Berbers. And you can see the Borreby and the Irish-like features here. Now, this is a mostly Mediterranean fellow, but he shows Afalou facial features. I'll get onto Afalou at some point when I talk about early Cro-Magnon finds. Afalou is a subtype of the Cro-Magnon skull. Again, he's a Riffian Berber. Here we have a partially brachycephalized Riffian Berber of the Afalou type. Here's partially brachycephalized specimen, again said to have Irish-like features. He's part of the Senajan of Katama, which is a northern Moroccan tribe near to the Riffians. And here, finally, this fellow, who is less typical. You can see he's much darker, but he's also said to have Irish-like features, and he's got reddish hair. He is a Qaid, so again an official of the Tagzuth, which is again part of the tribe of Senhajan. Great, so that's the Nordo-Cro-Magnon Upper Paleolithic recapitulations.